Yeah, I think Shaggy's definitely going to be happy having his Bruverhoog available, as well as that really fantastic Henselt list we saw being played yesterday. Adzakov having his Ithne banned, but he does, like Patton said, have access to Nilfgaard Spies, which is sort of like the replacement dwarves for this tournament. You know, it's the other big, heavy tempo deck, right? So really equal matchup between these two players, way too close to call in any way, shape or form. Very, very excited for this one. And of course, whoever wins this not only advances to the final today, but also claims their ticket to Challenger.
Yeah, and I mean, it's really important to say as well, JJ being quite lucky that he didn't run into any of these two players on the other side of the bracket. Having that run with only against consumed players for both the quarterfinals and the semifinals means that he has a fairly easy access to the final. We're starting right now, straight away, with Bruver and with King Bran here, so right away, two of the strongest decks in the meta right now.
Yeah, definitely, although already we see Shaggy's slight consume teching, maybe hurting his opening hand. Cyprian Wiley not necessarily going to find as valuable a target in this matchup, but he's doing pretty well on drawing his golds out.
Yeah, you can hit Olgir, for example, in round 2, which is, you know, decent in terms of utility, but not so great in terms of tempo, which is kind of, I mean, you're missing maybe Commander's Horn, for example, instead of that Cyprian, which is, you know, a big difference. 12 to 20 points is a big difference. But of course, playing Bruver, you don't really want Commander's Horn as much as with Ithne, where you can replay it. So it's just a tech choice for the tournament play.
Yeah, it's a really interesting opening hand from both players here, both finding access to several of their core pieces. Shaggy's got to be pretty happy with his opening hand. He doesn't have Paulie Dalberg in hand, which means it is a risk coming from that Bruver. That's something that players really like to guarantee, you know, that they're not going to play that dead round 1 Paulie Dalberg. But unfortunately, he can't guarantee that. But he has access to a decent amount of skirmishes, double agitator, and then all 4 of his golds is going to give him a very powerful round.
And of course, Elven Scout always played first most of the time in these matches because you have that chance to find you know, cards like the Smuggler that grow. The longer, you know, the earlier they're played, obviously they'll grow more. So
both players having fun with this one. Of course, these two players very good friends outside the game, so definitely enjoying their matchup. And Shaggy very happy with that Mahakam Defender carryover pull from the Elven Scout.
Especially considering, like we said yesterday, Skellige doesn't really have that removal option. It has Igni and Coral for big targets, but for this, you know, 6 strength Marauder, there really isn't an option to get rid of it, and it's huge because it deals with that Olgir carryover perfectly. Adzakov is playing the list that only has Olgir, no Morkvar, because it is a Siri Nova list with double Raider as well. So it means that if this Marauder isn't touched, isn't dealt with, we didn't see a Summoning Circle Marauder from Adzakov. I guess he's deciding to use that for a spy maybe. It means that there is a chance that Shaggy can kind of play around that Olgir dry pass round 2.
Absolutely. And the Barclay Elves does not low roll Shaggy. He does not pull the Paulie Dalberg. He does get a Dwarven Skirmisher, which he's going to be very, very happy with, because like you say, this Skellige variant is largely proactive, not having too many options to deal with your opponent's game plan. And when left unchecked, Dwarves is very, very happy about that.
Yeah, and now we're seeing King Bran coming down. We're going to discard 2 Raiders and Olgir. We used to always see King Bran being played in the first turn just to guarantee the carryover immediately, but in this case, now that we have Skellige with a bit of a different engine kind of gameplay in this meta, where we have the long ships, you want to play those as early as possible with Pirate Captains to get, you know, you already have that body to damage for 1 turn at least, and you can get that, you know, engine going at the very start of the match instead of turn 2, for example.
Yeah, there we go. Mahakam Volunteers going out. Gotta say, from these plays so far, Shaggy's doing everything right. Everything's going his way.
Yeah, you're pulling, you want to get the volunteers early on, so if there's some kind of an early pass situation from your opponent, you can make sure that there is, it's been thinned out already. You don't have the chance to draw those and maybe get 2 in round 2 that can make your hand really awkward and maybe even like break Ithline, for example, if you also draw spells. Like, it can get pretty awkward, and thinning those out early is great for his game plan.
Yeah, what do you think of the efficiency of units such as Yorveth Meditation and Shiru going up against this Skellige deck? They can make a big, big impact.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's decks that only run maybe 1 big unit finisher that, you know, might be the case in round 3, but Skellige is normally a faction in a deck right now with King Bran that has the big ships in a long or decently long round and also has Marauder. So you're always going to find, most of the time, 2 pretty good units to duel each other, so you're always going to get a lot of value. Even with Siri Nova, if you have last say as well, with a buff Marauder, for example, like 17 or 16. So Yorveth definitely going to be a really good card to keep for round 3, I think.
Yeah, Yorveth is fantastic against Skellige because those ships constantly changing the numbers present on the board really let you lay into that Fibonacci sequencing and really find a perfect duel target. So that is a fantastic card for this matchup. Shaggy's going to be very happy to not have to worry about drawing it later on. Shiru also available to perfectly deal with threats such as Siri Nova. So that really makes card advantage key in this. Now, of course, when starting on the blue coin, it's going to be a little bit harder to necessarily answer that Siri Nova play, but we do see cards like Yorveth Meditation in hand to also allow a little bit more tempo. So this gold power is looking great for Shaggy.
And this skirmisher here, always a big decision against Skellige, because if you hit a unit and you damage it, it'll end up adding an extra point to the Marauders later on. And also, you want to also play into that Ithleen Tremors if you have that option this turn, if you want to use that to hit at least a 1 and a 2 strength unit as well. So it's a big decision. It seems like it's just, oh, I'll hit anything and just get the 3-point buff, but you really have to think about what you're going to hit and maybe even line up a Scorch with Shiru, for example, is also an option. So a lot of decisions here for Shaggy to make when playing these skirmishers.
Yeah, Shaggy's got interesting decisions ahead of him now, actually, because he's getting down to really, really powerful cards remaining in his hand. Of course, Hattori not going to be of any value except 3 in this round. And, you know, Cyprian Wiley, maybe not the most accurate card for this matchup. So he's getting down to really, really essential cards. Ithleen, you want to hit a big board state with it, but does Shaggy actually have the time to let Adzakov establish a big board state where Ithleen's going to be a huge power swing?
Yeah, maybe not. Even then, Ithleen Tremors, you're going to end up hitting, maybe damaging units, and then you get, and watch for this, if Barclay, he's going to, yeah, he doesn't do Barclay because he's scared of the poly, I think, goes for Elven Scout instead. Yeah. And I mean, you can get a good target with Elven Scout. In this case, maybe not the greatest. I guess the Mercenary would be the best choice in terms of tempo, or maybe on some carryover, and he'll get the 10-point Neophyte. That's the option.
Yeah, Neophyte's only 1 less, and it's going to give him a little bit of carryover value with those hand buffs, which are nice. It helps make Cyprian a little bit less of a sort of a liability in hand. Any added value that you can add to him in an unideal matchup is going to be useful. So I quite like the Neophyte pull from there. Actually, I think the Decoy Elven Scout was always, you know, playing with dice a little bit, but I don't think it went too badly for Shaggy though.
Yeah, and especially considering you have a very strong hand, you know you can play, you know, 1 point less and still, you know, you have the tools to stick into this round. It's not like he has a bad hand, so I don't think he's planning on giving up this round anytime soon either.
Yeah, I don't think so. I expect to see him really try to just, you know, delay it out until that Ithleen can get that crazy, crazy value that we're used to seeing from that card. Definitely one of the most imposing cards in the game right now is Ithleen, doubled up with Stamford's Tremors. It's going to ping everything on your opponent's side of the board for 1 damage twice. Anything that dies, well, if anything dies, I should say, you'll spawn a Golem on your side of the board for 6 strength. It is a phenomenal tempo swing in today's meta.
But in this matchup, played early on, it's kind of awkward because it also buffs the Marauders quite a bit because it damages everything. So you don't get, I mean, you'll get a lot of points, but then those points will end up just transferring to the Marauder anyway in terms of buff value because of its ability that if there's a cursor damage unit on your board, you'll get an extra point of value for each one. So it's not the greatest in this matchup. It's still good in a very advanced
It's precisely what I'm saying about Shaggy having to delay out until that big board state where you can be comfortable playing it for the tempo, because like you say, if you ping everything for 1, you're just making those Marauders even scarier than they already are.
And Shaggy here perfectly lining up that Scorch with the Shiru, no Igni in hand, of course. And he did hit that boat with the Skirmisher early on, so he knew that this was coming. It would take some time, but he knew it was coming. But then again, I mean, you're not going to get that many. I mean, you're still killing a ship, which is going to be great for the long round value, but you are also going to scorch the own spy that Adzakov is copying here with Summoning Circle. So it'll be a good Shiru, but not game winning.
Yeah, unless he finds a way to self-damage this spy that's coming out from the Summoning Circle. Restore, a really nice draw for Adzakov here too. Unless Shaggy finds a way to damage that unit a little bit, which is quite difficult to do in Scoia'tael, because a lot of their damage units, even from Elven Scout, are enemy targets only. Yeah, that's going to really diminish Shiru's value.
I think ideally here you go for the Shiru because
yeah,
you know
it's
your
still 18
opponent
points, right?
Your opponent might have his spy and might have Igni as well, so he's going to punish your row anyway. But you won't be able to punish. I guess you can still get a 15 next turn when that ship grows. But Shaggy instead goes for the Elven Scout. He has decent options here. I mean, could be better. Could be more carryover, which I think he wouldn't mind because he is currently pretty high up in tempo with the spy being played still. But let's see what Shaggy decides.
Yeah, we're going to have to see what Shaggy goes for here. Elven Archer seems to be his option. I believe Elven Archer would actually be slightly more useful than a Pyrotechnician, because of course the Pyrotechnician, he doesn't want it hitting one of those high health units, because if he hits those, Shiru doesn't work anymore. So,
and even then it'd be 11 points as well, but it might just hit the Freya, for example,
precisely,
and it wouldn't be 11 points. So he'd rather go for the straight up 11 with the Archer. Some removal, no way to really control the numbers on Adzakov's side to get a more successful Scorch or anything, just going for straight value there.
Yeah, and making sure to not put any more units to Wounded to limit the power given to those Marauders when played as well. Here comes, thinking about the Restore, checking his graveyard.
Once the Restore comes up, it does give an option for Cyprian to hit that restored unit from 8 to a 4, which is still a way of dealing with Adzakov's kind of carryover finisher plays, and it's probably the best use you get out of Cyprian, other than hitting Olgrin in round 2. If you want to continue playing in this round, that is one option to kind of prolong it by being able to play Cyprian for some, guaranteed value.
Here is the classic, the restored Beastmaster, now allowing 19 points every time it's resurrected later on in the game, as well as being a pretty nice tempo play right now by Adzikov. So Adzikov playing the Skelliger very nicely. Ship has now moved away from spy value, meaning that Shiru is available on it. And yeah, both players actually having pretty nice board states in hands here.
Yeah, and there we see Cyprian being hovered over, because it is an option. I mean, you hit that restored unit, you're taking off 4 points from your opponent's finisher, because, let's be honest, that Beastmaster will be restored, or will be resurrected in round 3 by a Freya or Sigdrifa, and it's going to be an option to take away some points, at least, from that round 3.
Yeah, that's stacking value too, you know. If you take that base strength off, all of a sudden it's maybe 12 points if it would have been resurrected twice. So I like the Cyprian here, and that's what he's going for. Exactly right, weakening that resurrect target. Shaggy, little smile to himself, pretty happy with that one.
Yeah, it's not a common choice. I mean, Cyprian is a tech choice for Neckers, to be honest.
It is, yeah.
It's okay here in this matchup if you have the right target, but again, it's not a Commander's Horn. It's not a 20-point silver, which is kind of what we're used to nowadays in Gwent.
But being able to find such flexible value from an sort of a not ideal card is really, really great. And I'm sure that Shaggy's very, very happy that Cyprian isn't just sitting there, as a 12-point value card. It's actually going to have a lasting impact in this game. And from a card that you don't necessarily want in your hand, that's a really, really great turnaround.
Yeah, I'm sure when he included it, he didn't just think about Neckers. He thought about maybe the additional value could add to certain matchups, and this was definitely one of them, with Restore and Olgierd both being, options. And also, I guess in other matchups, there are also targets for Cyprian.
Yeah, Barclays and stuff can be great for
exactly.
it. Yeah.
And maybe even Stennis and other ones if it's being run. So, I mean, there's targets in the meta. It's not the greatest choice, but it's still a viable choice for tournaments especially. And with a big gap that we see here, Shaggy goes for a pass here. He knows that Igni's coming. He can't really do much about it.
The emotes flying left, right, and center here. Very, very pleased to see this, because if anything, this tournament's been lacking emotes so far. There's the Igni on the back row, 31 points of value, and immediately giving Adzikov the pass, so he gets to win the round on equal cards.
And that is huge. I mean, we still see obviously the defender there, and there's a chance for, there's no dry pass available for Adzikov, so that's at least, I mean, the little silver lining that Shaggy does have coming out of this turn. But like we said before, that Scorch earlier on with Shiru, it would have been great to not only destroy the ship from Adzikov's side, but also kill his own spy on his side, and that kind of disables the Igni play.
Huge mulligan by Adzikov there, finding his Ciri Nova. That is what we want to see for his sake, because when you don't get that Nova out, we've seen it in this tournament already, it hurts the deck so much. Both players actually sitting on very, very powerful hands. That Mahakam defender doing a huge amount of work and preventing the dry pass from Adzikov. Really, really doing value. But these hands are great, right? You've got Yorveth Med, Ithleen, Shiru, and then on the other side you've got Ciri Nova, Coral, Restore targets, and then Berserker Marauder. These are two really close hands.
Yeah, because Adzikov went on even, it makes it so that he can pretty much play here without any risk, because he knows his opponent doesn't have a spy anymore, and he still has probably one of the best finishers in the game in Ciri Nova, which is, better than Paulie, for example. I mean, Paulie's great, let's be honest, but Ciri Nova is a little bit better. And of course, Shaggy will have to go first in turn 3 as well, so the Skirmisher won't be able to hit anything other than the Olgierd, but it won't buff, for example. So Adzikov knows he can play this out, bleed out his opponent, and Shaggy is against the ropes. He has to stay, ahead of his opponent after every single turn, or else he'll go a card down for round 3.
Exactly, and even being on equal cards, because Shaggy will win this round, he has to play first in round 3. So if things stay as they currently are, which they most likely will in terms of card advantage, that means that Ciri Nova gets to be played unanswered, which is why Shaggy is spending his Shiru here, because he knows even if he keeps that Shiru into round 3, he is not going to get to reply to the Ciri Nova with it.
Exactly, and he could also, wait and hit a Marauder, for example, but in this case, I think he knows he wants to make sure it's not a dead Shiru, because if you have a dead Shiru, you have to Scorch yourself, it almost steals the deal and you lose the game. So just making sure he gets, guaranteed value from Shiru, not the maximum value, but at least, decent enough for a goal that he can kind of, pass. And it's also taking away value points from Adzikov in 4 or 5 turn round.
Yeah, and like you say, one of the so core things here is every turn he's got to go ahead. If he allows himself to not take advantage in one turn, that's just going to be the immediate batch from Adzikov. One card up and he's going to win, essentially.
And we see the Berserker there kind of playing around the Ithleen Tremors. It's a way to say, you want Ithleen Tremors, go for it, but watch out, because this Berserker is going to activate and you're going to just give me points, basically. And still, if you don't do it this turn, then you have Ithleen Tremors in a short turn 3 that's not great, or you have to mulligan it and maybe draw just Tremors by itself, which is not ideal either.
Yeah, I mean, Shaggy does have nice cards to res here, Elven Scout, easily finding, 10, 11 plus value consistently, so I think that he can stay ahead fairly comfortably, but like you say, that Tremors is definitely diminished in value, even though there are 2 2-strength units, so he would get 1 Golem upon playing the Tremors, but that Raging Berserker would just counter so much of its value.
And if Shaggy thinks that Adzikov has a bad hand, you can also try and go for carryover plays with the Elven Scouts. There's a lot of different targets that give you either hand buff carryover or just defenders, for example. But Thunder's also an option
Nice,
here.
I like this. Double Alz's Thunder coming out from Ifleen, immediately killing that Raging Berserker. Raging Berserker has a retaliation effect, meaning that if it takes damage but doesn't die, it transforms. However, if you do enough damage to one-hit kill it, it will not transform into the bear. So really, really big tempo play from Ifleen there.
But this leaves you a very dangerous Tremor top deck in round 3. You have to be careful with the mulligans because obviously top decking a Tremors is pretty bad in round 3.
Yes, pretty bad indeed. Not necessarily what you want to do, really. Adzikov, he's going to spend Artifact Compression here, just compressing that Skirmisher, kind of recognizing that Artifact Compression is not his win condition necessarily. He wants as short a round as possible and a Siri Nova. So I think both players are in a pretty good place here, but just Siri Nova is just such a powerful finisher. Can Shaggy answer it?
Shaggy's getting 1 point of carryover here at least with the Dragoon, but like you said, I mean, it's especially with Meditation, if you don't have a great target to hit, because obviously Siri Nova is going to be last play, so you won't be able to kind of damage that. I think he's going to have to play it in this turn, and in a battle, Siri Nova against Hattori, I think Siri Nova definitely wins it there.
Yeah, I think she certainly does, especially if your Meditation doesn't even have targets on the board. Meditation is probably going to have to be played now because it's simply not going to have the targets otherwise. It's going to come down right about now, I'd imagine. Dueling the... Oh, there's not even a great duel target.
Yeah, the coral into the bear.
It's the coral into the bear, right? But it's, it's 10, 13 power Yorveth at this point. He's not going to drop Siri Nova. It's far too risky, so... Adzikov, well, maybe he is. Adzikov thinking about it.
We saw it yesterday.
There was a
2-0 from Adzikov. He could maybe put his opponent on a bad card and could maybe go for it, but there is a big point gap.
Yeah.
And with a thinned out Squirtle deck, you're normally going to expect either Poly or Hattori in hand. So I think he could. And of course, it's not dead like in Game King's matchup against JJ. So he's going to go for the pass here and just go for the Siri Nova finisher in round 3. And he's probably hoping for a pretty good top deck here as well, just to make sure he has 2 consistent plays.
Paulie Dalbo coming out is a great, great draw for Shaggy, though. Adzikov looking at his graveyard. Adzikov's draw is a Berserker Marauder.
He could get better, and he's going to go
Scowl.
He could get
Excellent
better.
draw for Adzikov too. Both players hitting wonderful top decks.
Extra 6 points there for that mulligan, so Adzikov taking his chances, kind of seeing what is in his deck, kind of remembering what he has in his deck, what the options were, going for the risky play and gets, a +6 play, which might be game deciding.
Yeah, there we go. Unfortunately, that Skirmisher is not going to buff. It's just going to kill the target on the board. The target has to survive for Skirmisher to buff, and that is not the case here. Looks like Siri Nova may be the first play.
Yeah, I mean, there's really no reason to, I think, considering that there isn't going to be it's not going to be damaged. Oh, well, it could get damaged by a Skirmisher.
Come out, to be fair, as well. And yeah, he could be damaged by a Skirmisher, so...
It would be 1 extra point total, and of course, I think Adzikov knows Shaggy's list for the most part, knows that Igni probably isn't being run, and he'll know that Shiri has gone out already, so this will be a great finisher here with Poly, but I don't think it will be enough. We're going to see Skjall come out for
not enough. The Skjall mulligan was enough to give Adzikov the game.
By 1 point.
By 1 point, yeah. If he hadn't mulliganed into Skjall, he would have been 1 point behind. Incredible play by both players there. A nail-bitingly close game. What a great start to this series.
Yeah, there we see it. High risk, high reward. He gets the mulligan that could have given him maybe something worse. I'm not sure what was left in his deck, but I'm sure he took the the calculated risk and said, maybe I have a 4 in 5 chance of getting something better. He got the Skjall, which I think was almost ideal, to be honest. And he ends up with that. But winning by 5 points, so if he wouldn't have done that, it would have been a loss by 1 point. So Adzikov, first win already.
Yeah, there we go. Adzikov going 1-0 up in this series, but of course there are many more games to come. Adzikov's brand is now out of contention. He's got Henselt and Emir remaining to win with. Shaggy, do you think he sticks, or do you think he changes up faction now?
I mean, it's tough to say, because you're obviously... once you're on a deck, you normally want to win with it. Because I mean, there's a lot of strategies to keep in mind here, and Shaggy has gone through, I think, most of them in his head. He knows what he's doing here. We can't really get into his head ourselves, so we don't know what he's thinking. But I mean, all his decks are fairly strong. He will be on red coin, I believe.
He will be, yes.
In this matchup, so maybe Henselt is an option, because we know Henselt is a great red deck matchup or deck to choose when you have red coin, because it has that. It's very favored with the spy situation, the fact you have done banners, for example. So. Maybe we do see Henselt, maybe we just see... It looks like a Henselt, possibly from Shaggy, because...
Yeah, this is Shaggy's Henselt. There's the Siege Sports in his hand. Choosing, like you say, the traditional red coin deck of Henselt. And Aye Sir making an appearance. That's going to get swiftly mulliganed. There's the Siege Towers. Villain Trettenmer, Shani John Natalis. And a win. She's going to be pretty happy with his opening hand. It's a little messy, but... There's several power plays in there, and he's got the siege supports for the Henselt. We saw that yesterday we saw that, and we can see how efficient that's been.
And Azakov with Emir, we saw in this exact matchup yesterday, Shaggy against Schmel, where Emir wasn't able, I mean, he got a card from an Emir deck in round 2, where spies normally dominate after they ramp up past the first, putting out engines and putting out some emissaries. But yesterday we saw the siege supports being too much to handle for the Emir player when Schmel was piloting that deck. So maybe we see a repeat here.
Azakov getting a hand he's going to be happy with too, though. Double Imperial Enforcers, double Emissaries, Summoning Circle, Iris. So many powerful cards. Not a bad card in Azakov's hand right now.
Do we see a dry pass here? Schmel did not know about siege supports.
Classic, right?
Schmel did not know about siege supports yesterday, so maybe that was a factor where he did decide to dry pass. Azakov does know about them now. Instead decides to go for Rainform Cantarella and flip around this coin flip, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting start from Azakov, like you say, knowing about the siege supports and knowing how much tempo they can kick out in a round and how difficult they can be to eliminate those enforcers when the battering rams are coming down. So I like this play from Azakov. I think reversing the coin flip against a Hensel is a good thing to do.
And of course, Hensel has no carryover. We know Romvid comes out at the end of turn now. It doesn't count as a carryover play, unlike the last patch. So we know that you don't really need a spy in round 2 to make sure you can get card advantage. And even then, if you had one, you'd probably get answered by either Summoning Circle or Thaler from Shaggy. So maybe hoping for no spy here from Shaggy, but we do see Thaler in Shaggy's hand, and he responds right away to flip that coin flip right back. Although the +5 from Rainform puts Azakov maybe a little bit in a better position, but he is wasting a gold to do that.
Shaggy getting those winches out. Definitely one of the more competitive create cards we've seen go into the game. Winch, an excellent choice for Hensel, because when you get a unit that is in your deck, you can pull all 3 of them from your deck using Hensel, which of course when used with things such as siege towers is phenomenally powerful. But we do tend to see the siege support as the Hensel target in Shaggy's deck.
Yeah, but why stop at 3 when you can just shuffle them back to the Neki and go for maybe 6 targets? So I mean, there's no limits here for Shaggy.
You're
can go
a
for some
bad man, Panda.
He can go for some pretty crazy situations, but hopefully we only see maximum of 3 to not get Azakov too tilted, because it is hard to go up against Hensel pulling 6 units from his deck or a lot of units.
It really is, and now the 26 points worth of spies on Shaggy's board must be slightly frustrating when you don't have that Igni in your hand, but Shaggy has multiple ways to proceed here. It depends really how much he wants to commit to this round, because of course, as soon as those siege supports come out, that's essentially saying, all right, I'm committing to this round, and that can just kind of invite the pass, and then you lose a lot of that efficiency.
Shaggy does know that there is no Igni in Azakov's deck. Azakov did play Spy yesterday, so he does know that. I mean, he knows, I'm pretty sure all gold were played. I can't really remember from the top of my head, but I imagine all gold were played for Azakov in a deck that thins so much. And he knows that Igni isn't a possibility, so he knows to not be too scared of that double 13 just yet.
Yeah, exactly. There's Ronvid coming out. There's the sort of pseudo carryover established should he play into round 2, but very, very great utility card for Shaggy, and it really allows him to, if this round starts ramping up to go longer, he's now got a crewman on the board too.
And Scorch not looking too great for Shaggy right now. It would be, a bit of a setback if he were to accidentally play that out, but I think Shaggy knows better than that. Going to keep that in hand for maybe round 3 to get rid of maybe the Joachim finisher, for example, or a big Imperial Brigade this turn as well could be an option.
Yeah, and this is certainly going to be a reasonable Imperial Brigade. However, Azakov yet to really establish many engines on the board, because that change to Imperial Forces make them shoot retroactively gives you a lot more leniency in when you're able to play them, but we're yet to see the real Nilfgaard chaining come out.
And no siege support either. I mean, you want the siege support down early so that,
both
for
players
example,
actually seem very hesitant in this round so far.
Yeah, exactly. When emissaries come down, you want them to start getting buffed. We saw yesterday emissaries coming down at 5 points. That really disrupts the spy gameplay, because it makes these plays not so great tempo, because you're seeing emissaries come down at 5 instead of 2. That's a big issue when you're chaining out maybe 3 emissaries in one play. So that would be a 9-point difference for not having siege supports, for example.
Yeah, both players trying to just sort of keep putting points on the board, stay within, 1 card of each other, but not really wanting to play key cards here. However, now we see Shaggy going for a winch, which means that he is committing to this round a little bit more. You can drop that next to the Ronvid. That's going to boost up to 12. And of course, a wonderful tempo card is Siege Tower. So yeah, Shaggy seems to be a little bit more comfortable easing into a longer round here now.
If he doesn't go for the reinforced trebuchet, I think he knows, and he does the math, that the siege tower is going to be 4 points, so that you have to get the reinforced trebuchet to hit for 4 turns, and with enforcers being able to ping them down quickly in maximum of 2 turns, or maybe even 1 turn if an emissary is played. Shaggy knows that doing the math, the siege tower is the better option.
Yeah, definitely. And also interesting to note that because there aren't siege supports down, these machines won't be coming out armored, and the armor is really, really key against these enforcers, because it can take them, one or two more shots to kill a machine, which normally actually renders it pretty inviolable because you're sacrificing so much tempo off of their damaging shots. So no siege supports means that he's not overcommitting to this round just yet. Both players starting to ramp up their tempo a little bit. Adzikov marking down more and more spies, so when he drops those enforcers they have more shots. But both players still holding on to core. No siege support, no real emissaries yet.
Yeah, and the siege support is just a snowball decision. If you play that out, it's going to be the Hensel target right now. And if you play that out this turn, you might have to use Shawnee next turn to res it if you need it for round 2 if you want to bleed out. So playing that siege support seems like an easy decision, but there's a lot, that follows up that decision, a lot of consequences that Shag gets to really think about.
Yeah, definitely. Shaggy hovering over John Natalis here, which is an interesting one. Go for Winch though.
I mean, you start getting scared of the spy tempo. Once you see so many spy tags on your board already, 4 tags there, a big spy play with a mirror, for example, can go and overpass you. And of course, losing on even is not the option here, especially with the out carryover. Last game we saw both Olgierd and the defender kind of, making the losing on even not as bad. But in this case, it would be quite bad because you'd be a card down for round 3 after a dry pass.
Another siege tower comes out from Shaggy just for that tempo coming out from Winch. He's keeping control options in his hand for now, of course, because he wants to hit those Imperial forces when they're down. But it looks like we're about to see the first one played now. 4 shots coming out from that due to the retroactive firing, trying to wear down that siege tower because he knows that Shaggy doesn't run anything like siege masters, so he can comfortably fire shots on those machines all he likes.
You have to remember, Shaggy does run siege towers in his own deck, so these winches creating targets, like we said, that could pull out in the end maybe 3 or 4 siege towers later on. There isn't an Neki in Shaggy's deck, so there isn't the possibility for some, really crazy Hensel plays, but still he could pull out 3 siege towers right now for a huge tempo swing. So I said before that Adzikov could maybe surpass him, but if Shaggy feels pressure, just pulls on the Hensel button and wins this round at least pretty easily, or at least gets that extra card from Adzikov.
Yeah. The Hensel really is the nuclear option here, but we're going to want to see Shaggy keep it until he needs it, really. And I wouldn't be surprised to see it used in a later round with those siege spots to add so much tempo to what's coming out. It looks like a ballista shot, sorry, not a ballista, a battering ram going onto that enforcer. Lorraine gets a 2 health. That opens up the next battering ram to kill it and then refire, or even if it's in a double crewman pocket, killing Rainfarn and refiring. But right now, that enforcer is still very much so alive and still able to do damage.
And already we see Imperial Brigade being a viable target for that Scorch. We saw in game 1 in the first semifinal of this day, we saw Gamekin getting quite a big Scorch used against him with both his Imperial Brigades. So Adzikov, I think he learned from that mistake, and he'll definitely be thinking about not having 2 Imperial Brigades of the same exact strength, because that could be catastrophic against these Hensel lists that normally do run Scorch.
Yeah, we just saw that absolutely annihilate Game King in that Nilfgaard match. I'm sure Adzikov still has that fresh in his mind and will likely be doing everything he can to avoid such a fate. But we see Emissary starting to come out now. No chain, but another Imperial Enforcer coming down. Not staggered though. Sorry, staggered.
Adzikov has learned from his mistakes. Of course, in a Hensel list there are some options to do damage, but I'm not sure if he has the option to do exactly 2 points of damage, because battering rams will be 3 most of the time.
Yeah, so I think that Enforcer likely will die. It seems like the clear choice for Shaggy right now. He could go for, potentially if he wants to do big tempo, he could go for something like Natalis, but that's pretty significant commitment.
Yeah, it's a big commitment, and there's no commander when you want to thin out of your deck to now play in with Bork, for example, in round 3. That is in Adzikov's deck. He is playing kind of an interesting Hensel list, but Shaggy instead playing siege supports, but no commander's horn.
Yeah, so it would be a Winch, I believe, from Natalis, just for more tempo. And, so like we say, no Naneki, so no super cheese coming out. But there's Henselt. That's going to be going on a siege tower, I imagine, setting up that double crewman pocket. It could go on battering rams to do a lot of damage, but siege tower's got to be more value, right? Yep, there we go.
And Adzikov, very smart here, putting the emissaries in the back row to kind of fill that row. And now there's no chance to place that unit next to a crewman, so it only come down to 10. 2 points lost because of Adzikov's great placement with the emissaries in the back row. But of course, when you're playing Hensel, I think 2 points isn't the end of the world. You already played 30, so it's fine.
Yeah, really making use of those new row limit mechanics. Of course, there's now a maximum of 9 units on a row, and Shaggy has filled up his siege row, so that lonely siege tower sitting in the range row, just self-buffing, not receiving any help from any crewmen.
And now we see, it's interesting he decided to not use the ram first instead Hensel, because you are giving, one more turn for that enforcer to get value. It's also true that maybe he decided that if he gave 2 turns to Adzikov and he could maybe play an enforcer and then Iris, for example, he could maybe not get away from him in terms of tempo, even with Hensel, because Iris is a big tempo play as well with 2 enforcers already on the board. So maybe deciding that he wanted to make sure to create the gap now and have maybe a pass opportunity right this next play.
Yeah, and here we go. Here come the shots from an enforcer, firing retroactively. 5 shots ringing out. Nice little value play by Adzkov. It's still a 22-point gap, which is not insignificant, but that Scorch is looking really nice for Shaggy, or he can drop the battering ram. Do you think if Shaggy, sort of had the foresight that this round was going to go so long, we would have seen the siege supports come out? Because it seems like that's going to be a difficult card to necessarily find too much value from now.
Yeah, definitely. It's a card you want to play early on to get, the maximum buffs as possible. You see there's a big gap here. Shaggy going for a pass. It's really interesting considering you have a deck that runs Bork, that wants that last save, that wants the round 3 control. Adzkov knows this. Henselt is a deck that has that finisher. And maybe Shaggy thinking twice about this. It's a tough decision, but
yeah, it's an interesting one considering that he knows there's 2 enforcers down, so he knows that Iris immediately dies on play. So,
but he still has Scorch. So maybe if the Iris buffs one of the Impair Brigades, he can get a big Scorch. He still has a battering ram to kill that enforcer as well to take away some tempo. He has an Talus, but he decides to go for the pass.
Let's go for the pass. Very interesting pass here from Shaggy. I mean, Adzkov can take it in one card pretty comfortably with the Iris or potentially even other cards. So, yeah, interesting pass from Shaggy, giving up maybe the length of this game control, which is super important when you're running such heavy control elements like Villain Trettenberth.
Exactly. I mean, you have 4 engine units as well. Even maybe just a normal spy play with an emissary could have maybe been enough with 4 engine units already on the board and a decent pull like an Impair Brigade. That would have also been enough. But of course, Iris, once you have the option to play her out and get her points, you want to not risk it too much because she could be a dead card further into the matchup. And she also boosts units that Bork might kill. So in the end, probably a smart play there from Adzkov to get those points and get that card out of this deck and just it's worth it already just to play it round 1.
Yeah, reasonably nice hand for both players here. Shaggy looking at double battering rams, not going to mulligan, choosing to keep his entire hand, which means that he's definitely happy with what he's got. But Adzkov looking at pretty nice draws. He's got his Menno out, he's got his Asaya, so there's definitely power in the hand of both these players, but I think that Adzkov having control of the round length now is really going to harm Shaggy.
Yeah, but there is no spy option from Adzkov, which means that if Shaggy can keep up in tempo, he can decide to get a card from Adzkov and go into the next round a card up, but it'll be tough because if Adzkov, he can bleed with a lot of cards here. Menno into an Infiltrator, for example, can get a big swing as well. So instead we're going to see an option to Gwent, and just like we said, he's going to try getting tempo right away and put, maybe try and get a card away from Adzkov for round 3.
Yeah, this is going to be the Reinforced Trebuchet from Shaggy because it's the only one that offers any real sort of value. Battering ram only having 1 target and being 2 points lower, so you may as well just play the Reinforced Trebuchet for that continued value. And also, it does make him have the pass, so he can stay 1 card ahead. Adzkov is going to be looking to pressure Shaggy and hopefully maybe even get that card back.
Yeah, setting up emissaries straight away with a mirror, of course, a big, +7 tempo to that medic, for example, or +6 if you take the medic back. But still, a decent chunk of tempo there, a lot of extra points.
Yeah, definitely. Emir Vikavara medic, a very, very popular play in today's meta, so it's going to be an interesting one to see how Shaggy proceeds. He doesn't have the space to put the siege support down. He doesn't have anything to kill with a battering ram. He's going to have to think about this one.
We see Ronvid not invited to the party. Asire did aggressively shuffle him back into the deck for Shaggy. So no Ronvid, no crewman synergy here. We see 2 battering rams and maybe a siege support that could have helped with that pocket to have a great 5-point battering ram hit initially. There's no chance there. So a big shuffle from Asire, making I think a pretty worthwhile silver in terms of utility.
Yeah, definitely. Asire onto Ronvid is a really, really nice play because Ronvid sets his base strength to 1 when he resurrects. He does not reset when shuffled back in the deck. So it makes the round 3 mulligan really dangerous too, because you can just draw out a 1-point crewman, which while it's a crewman, the tempo from that play is horrible.
And I love this Bork from Shaggy. It basically says, I know you're going to bleed me out. I know if I play Bork at the very end, it won't go off. But of course, I also love this Infiltrator tag with Menno as well on the board. So, Adzkov thinking very clearly what he has to do here to kind of because if not, Shaggy basically puts a ticking time bomb on the board. He says you have 3 turns to either get out of here, not play a big unit, or pass. But if Shaggy doesn't give him the pass because he played that Bork while still being ahead, it means that Adzkov would have to go a card down into round 3. So a good play from Shaggy, but a good response from Adzkov as well.
But potentially a great response to the response waiting from Shaggy, because if Menno kills that Villain Trettenberth, it opens up a 20-point Scorch. Now, Menno onto that Villain Trettenberth is 21 points of value. But then, sorry, it's 18 points of value, but then the 20-point Scorch
Infiltrator.
Yes,
Summoning Circle
T-tag,
Infiltrator. Another great answer to that play from Adzkov. So, but it's a tie here, so it gives Adzkov the pass as well. So, not ideal for Shaggy, I think.
I wonder if he takes this pass because it would be on equal cards. He would get final play, but final play isn't so important against Northern Realms.
Once Bork is played.
Yeah, once Bork is played. Yeah, for sure.
It's not as excessive. You also saw Shaggy wasting his John and Talos' turn as well, which is a lot of tempo for round 2. And Adzkov still has his finishers. He still has Vilgefort, he still has Joachim, and he still has the Menno as well. So not a bad pass from Adzkov. I think he has the chance here to pass and get out of this round while he still can.
There we go. There's the pass coming out from Adzkov. Going to be going into round 3 with those 4 cards in hand on equal cards against Shaggy, who's going to spend a battering ram. Nope. I wonder if he just drops the siege support.
He might, if he doesn't see the value from it in round 3, or might decide that it might get removed as well from Adzkov and it's not going to get its full value. You might have to pass. It will be a fairly short round 3, so maybe that's also the option, or the reason why.
Yeah, he's sizing up his options right here. Because that Villain Trentonmouth is going to go off.
Let's see what he's gonna hit it with the Rams as well if he plays the villain, because he doesn't want to hit the 10s, of course.
No, he'd have to hit the 5. Or the 7, of course. So this is going to be an interesting decision for Shaggy, really summing up what he doesn't want in round 3. Of course, he wants all these cards in reality, but you can't have them, mate. You got to spend one. So Shaggy going down to the last second, gonna Scorch?
Scorch, I mean, the reinforced trebuchet hits for a point,
yeah,
so
it gives the pass,
it still
but
wins.
Scorch is such an expensive card to spend.
Maybe thinking it might be a dead card in round 3 if Adzkov plays well and doesn't play Joachim till the very end. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, maybe Shaggy's scared of it being a bricked card. It could be the reason why. I mean, obviously a very cheeky play with a reinforced trebuchet winning at the very end there with a ping, but
this is a dangerous mulligan for Shaggy. It's not Ronvid, but it is
a dead Royal Decree. Oh no!
Oh no! That is essentially a absolute, well, it's just a dead card. That is a horrendous draw for Shaggy. He would have rather had the II, so he's wiggling the Royal Decree about. Adzkov looking at his notes. He's wondering what Shaggy played. Confused look on Adzkov's face.
He's looking in the graveyard, and he's probably going to start smiling very soon, knowing that he just got a big boost to the percent, the chance he had to win this game.
Oh my goodness, yeah, that is an ideal situation for Adzkov, looking to head into what could potentially be the final match of this series if he takes the 2-0 here. So Adzkov's going to be ecstatic with that. Seeing a dead Royal Decree when you're playing in the semi-finals of Gwent Open, that's got to be a good feeling.
There's a big difference between tournament and ladder play. In ladder, you might decide to not play your brick card till the very end, hoping your opponent somehow forfeits or thinks you have a great card, a normal finisher for your deck. But in this case, Shaggy obviously trying to have the best amount of response possible, and playing that dead card early gives him the chance to respond to his opponent's plays in a bit of a better manner. So I think he just decides to say, here, I have a dead card, you got lucky, I got very unlucky, and this might just decide this match.
I think that is maybe going to decide that match. It was a very dangerous mulligan, but he had to because of the done banner. He had, he's got a 1-strength Ronvid, and he had that dead Royal Decree that he could pull, so it was a really dangerous mulligan for Shaggy. But looking at the cards in hand, I mean, Adzkov is just in a supreme position to take this.
Yeah, exactly. And we see probably maybe an Infiltrator coming out soon to tag that siege support as well. I mean, it's an option. We do instead see Kahir into Emir.
Into
what a play.
Into Emissary.
What a
into
tempo
all
swing
the
here.
things.
This is maybe the best possible Vilgefort in this deck. You just thin out your deck at the Kalek, make sure you know exactly what you're going to pull at the very end there, and you have a great Enforcer here as well, just to start pinging down that siege support.
And then a Kalak for the Emir too. It gets the dumb banners out, which are, they synergize quite nicely with the siege support on board, being 15 free points, but just looking at the hands, look at this. Kalak, Joachim, and Menno versus a couple of battering rams and Shani. Shani may be, best waifu, but I don't think she's going to take this.
Yeah, if we had to really think and look at the hands, if Shaggy had a better hand, being 10 points behind, he might win it, but we're looking at the hands, and Shaggy's behind. He does not have the better hand. He has the worst hand. We're seeing Adzkov with a bit more value there, with better silvers and a better finisher as well, I think. Shani will be great, but just battering rams are going to be worse than Joachim and
Well, the initial
Kalak,
damage boost from the crewman on the battering rams isn't even necessarily going to do anything. There's not going to be any full-strength units out. It's irrelevant, so this is just looking worse and worse for Shaggy, and Adzkov with just an absolutely killer round 3 as this Emir deck.
Yeah, it was a weird round 2, but especially that round 1 where Adzkov could win and get that, and Shaggy with that pass, it was a risky pass, and maybe this is,
pass was so risky, yeah.
Maybe it's haunting him now, maybe thinking that could have decided the match as well, because he doesn't have control of this round, have to play Bork early in round 2, so. And there we see the Infiltrator, perfect synergy with the Menno that he has in hand, a great 7-point target, even with not with the Nazca Brigade, because he does have 1 point of armor on that battering ram, but still a great Menno target, and of course he definitely has targets for the Nazca Brigade that will come later on from Joachim.
Yeah, bear in mind, in the context of this series, this is a huge win for Adzkov if he pulls it off, because this is against a red coin Hensel, one of the strongest decks in competitive Gwent. So in terms of the series as a whole, this would be an enormous victory for Adzkov.
Yeah, and there we see the Infiltrator. Being able to remove that tag from the battering ram is a great way to deal with that, the Mano synergy. And of course, being able to res an Infiltrator with a Shawnee is not something you see every day, but Shaggy putting that knowledge to good use here in this matchup. But of course, already a tie, and just anything would do it for Adzikov. And
Boom.
A dominating win from Adzikov in this match on blue point against Hensel.
Extraordinarily good gameplay from Adzikov there. Really well played by the Polish player. I think that pass in round 1 came back to burn Shaggy.
Yeah, it was very risky, and now Adzikov, I mean, he just has to win one more game. We were talking about yesterday, he had the courage, he couldn't get past quarterfinals, and now he's found in a situation where he's 2-0 up in the semifinals against a player like Shaggy that played very cleanly yesterday with a 3-0, dominating win against
for his next game, Adzikov is on the red coin with Hensel.
Can he do it better than Shaggy? That's the question. Is he going to pass early round 1? Could that be the correct play from Adzikov? And we're going to see. We're going to find out very soon. Shaggy a lot to choose from, of course, a lot of different decks. He knows what his opponent's playing, of course. There is only one deck left in this Conquest format. But it's tough for Shaggy. Yeah,
that does give him the advantage of the pick. He can pick what to go against Hensel with. He knows what it's going to be, but no matter what you pick, you're going against a red coin Hensel, and that is a scary, scary thing. And Adzikov is actually playing a slightly more traditional Hensel list as well, which, considering the no Neckers present, you could view as stronger.
Yeah, we do see the ballistas, we do see battering rams, we do see, of course, Winch, a great addition to this deck after the most recent patch that added a lot of new cards to the game. But we also see Commander's Horn, not the most common silver to run in these kinds of lists, because you normally have, you want 7 to 8 to 9 point units, not more than that, because it'll mess up with your Bork, with your Scorch otherwise.
Yeah. And especially, when your opponent's running Shiru, Commander's Horn can really just add a lot of value to that. So you got to be careful with the Commander's Horn in this one. It's definitely a tricky one.
And we do see Naneki in Adzikov's deck, so he does have the chance to maybe shuffle some Winch targets back into his deck, or even shuffle back the dumb banner like Cavalry, which is, a way to make Naneki not only a 10-point silver, which maybe a Sire is sometimes, that 10, 11 strength silver, but also maybe a 22-point silver if you shuffle back your Light Cavalry.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be an interesting match for these two players. We see Paulie Dahlberg in hand for Shaggy this time, which means that he can play Barkley Elves without risk of bricking his Paulie Dahlberg, which is really, really good. So hopefully for Shaggy, he's going to get a nice little ramp. He's got the War Dance of round 2 as well. He's going to be pretty happy with that. Now, we found Cyprian Wiley finding pretty good returning value on the restored Beastmaster against Skellige. Can you see it finding a good target against Northern Realms?
There is no Stennis, but you could always kill Dumb Banner like Cavalry and mess with that Naneki play a little bit. It's, a cheeky little thing that might not even make sense in some matchups where you don't, or some matches against Hensel where they don't shuffle those back. But it's an option. I mean, that's the one option that maybe Shaggy just thought about, and maybe the one he'll wait for in this matchup. And another thing to note, we don't see any Elven Scouts in Shaggy's hand. One going first is kind of the card you want to see. Shaggy runs 3 of these in his deck and none in his hand. It's, pretty bad odds for Shaggy right off the bat.
Yeah, the Bruverhoog going into the Yavin is interesting because he has that option because he has sort of his core silvers in his hand already, with the exception of Hattori, I believe. So interesting to see Barkley Elves being used for the spy here, really wanting to reverse that coin flip situation against Hensel, much like we saw Adzikov choose to do.
And we see reinforced Trebuchet here. If you're not playing against spies, there's a lesser chance that your opponent's gonna be able to deal with that easily. There is a chance for maybe a Thunder from Shaggy in this in this list that has Aethelflaed, for example, and Thunder is an option in the deck. But again, not in hand for Shaggy, so nothing to worry about there for Adzikov. He sets up that 8-point reinforced Trebuchet that just gets added value every single turn that's played in this round 1.
Yeah, Shaggy hits his Volunteers on the first Agitator, which he'll be very happy to do as that thins out his deck for him, and gets a nice little bit of tempo on the board too. It's 14-point plays, exactly the same as playing a Skirmisher from an Agitator, but with that added deck efficiency, he's going to be glad to see the Volunteers out of there, so he doesn't roll 1 from Barkley.
Yeah, and you might see 4 units there and say, how is this guy running 4 bronzes in a deck? It is because Agitator does a copy of it, and because that copy is, it isn't, just a copy of a Volunteer, it's an actual Volunteer because that's just the card name, so it'll bring out all of them, but it sets up a Ballista.
Oh, the Ballistas are so painful in here. There's 3 of them in Adzikov's hand. There's 2 of them in Adzikov's hand, 1 on the board, so those 2 in Adzikov's hand automatically have their 5 targets. So Ballistas can hit maximum 5 targets with the same strength. There's already 5 2-strengths on the board. Each one of those Ballistas gets, it's so good.
Exactly, and we want to see Adzikov here not wasting a spy this turn because there is a War Dancer in Shaggy's hand that could kind of create a carryover situation that you can't really play around, and it means that Adzikov has to try and save his spy for next turn if he does win this round to make sure that he does have an option to, find a way to pass on even cards instead of being a card down for round 3.
Here comes the Shiru, going to be burning up that Yavin to get Shaggy closer and lessen the points gap a little bit, because he's currently 22 behind. This is going to put him to only 5 behind, and of course when you're on the coin flip, that makes it very easy for him to catch up, or not. Thinking about saving the Yavin, it seems. Not so. Oh.
The Shiru is being played, and it's not only good tempo, it's also a way of creating, it's the best situation you're going to find with Yavin, because Adzikov, he does have the Commander's Horn that is, one option that could give him a better Shiru target, but in general, you're the one playing big units, not your opponent. So when you have the chance to get a pretty good, a decent value for a gold like Shiru in that situation with a 17-point Shiru, you're going to take it because it just makes sense. You're not playing against Consume that has the guaranteed biggest unit, or a deck that like maybe Spies is going to have those huge Impair Brigades, the big Joachim targets. In this case, he finds a Shiru target and he takes it early on to make sure it's not a bricked card.
Yeah, we're seeing the winch come out again. This time it's going to be a battering ram. Of course, those Mahakam volunteers giving excellent targets for that battering ram. Everything on such low health. No crewmen on the board, interestingly, for Adzikov, but these machines are just doing work by their own.
Yeah, with Adzikov, with Hensel, even if the Spy is played from Shaggy, kind of reversing the coin flip, it still means Adzikov can really win this round and have control of round 3, because he is so far ahead here, with still Hensel, for example, being available, and Reinforced Trebuchet pinging every single turn. As long as he finds a Spy next turn, I think if he wins this round, he'll be very happy.
Yeah, he certainly will be. I think round 1 is what you want to do as Hensel. We definitely just saw Shaggy giving up round 1, really being a very painful point for him last game. So this is going to proceed as normal for now. Barclay L's pulling out a Skirmisher. It's ideal target for the Resurrect later on with Paulie Dahlberg. But for now, Adzikov's looking in a nice position. All those units lining up for ballistas just gives him really easy board clears.
Yeah, exactly. And we see Ithling Tremors in Shaggy's hand, which is an option. You could also save it with Thunder for later on to try and deny that Hensel as well. If you can Thunder 2 of the Hensel targets and maybe after the Shani kind of break the Hensel is also a risky but a very rewarding play. So maybe Shaggy thinks about that instead of using the more common Tremors play that normally gets a lot of value. But like you said, ballistas here, a great bronze tool to just deny a lot of value from Shaggy.
Yeah, just shredding Shaggy's board state and really leaving everything on 1 HP is not exactly where you want to be. So we're just going to see the agitators come out. We're going to see Skirmishers roll out. Of course, Skirmishers very, very infamous as an extremely high tempo unit. 14 points of play. And he's probably just going to be playing out these agitators just to stay ahead in points. Commander's Horn being hovered by Adzikov. He does have the 5 units for it. He's seen the Shiru come out, so he feels pretty secure in playing it.
And even then, the 12-point Skirmisher would block that, but he knows there's no Igni. If your opponent plays Igni, I don't think you have, in any case, the bravery to play that Commander's Horn and get that, 40-point Igni risk right there. But he knows his opponent doesn't play Igni in this square tile list and decides, I'm going to get this Horn out now that I can before I play it maybe in round 3 with a Bork. He could kind of mess up my sequencing. So he gets it out now, gets the value. 20 points for a silver, not too shabby.
Yeah, he's also denying golems from Ithling's Tremors as well, stopping units being on 2 HP. So that Commander's Horn in general just doing so much work for Adzikov. Looks like Isengrim Outlaw will be bouncing Barclay L's.
Getting a bit of extra points there as well, since it was a damaged Barclay L's. And, thinning out another of these Skirmishers. 2 options for Paulie later on.
Yeah, there we go. That is really nice tempo for Shaggy. However, Adzikov remains fairly in control of the match. He's got a lot of high tempo maneuvers, especially with things like low health units and battering rams. So, still options remaining for Adzikov. Looks like it might be another winch coming out.
Does he really have a Hensel target here, though? Because we don't see Siege Masters in his hand, and we see 2 of ballistas and also battering rams. So he's not going to get the full value from Hensel in this turn, I think.
Yeah, it's actually questionable whether he'll get decent value from Hensel in this game. Okay, there's a battering ram being spawned by Winch. That adds a little bit of value to it because you'll pull 2 additional. So, Hensel's pretty good. It will activate the crew, but there's not high enough health units to make that really matter without a double crewman pocket. So, yeah, Hensel might be struggling to see his full potential. That triple ballista in hand is not really what you want to see, as good as it's been this round, really.
Especially with no Siege Master, no way to really thin one out. You can't play Shani to Stennis into a Siege Master, for example. It's not being run in this deck, so maybe it gives kind of an expiration date on Adzikov's play in this round 1, where he has to get out and try and save that Hensel plate for later on.
Yeah, no Ronvid is hurting him, and like you say, no Siege Masters is an awkward draw too. So while his cards are representing high value, they're representing poor Henselt play, if that makes sense, because he's not establishing those crewmen, not establishing that carryover. So could be problematic in the later game for Adzikov, as much as his cards may be doing great value now.
But Shaggy also with a hand that, screams round 3 and not round 1. You see Paulie, you see Hattori, you see a War Dancer for round 2, and Cyprian not finding the greatest value. So both players kind of running, out of options for this round 1. We'll have to see who ends up quitting first under this pressure and who decides to give up this round 1 earlier. But both players not the greatest round 1 hand. You want Shawnee for later on, you want a Neki for later on as well. You still have a Ballista and a Battering Ram that are going to find pretty good value. I mean, not too bad.
Yeah, I think Adzakov potentially has the better round 1 hand because he does have the Ballista and the Battering Ram. Shaggy is looking really at, Ithleen or Cyprian for value at this point. Although, now there are Resurrect targets with Hattori, should he really want to go for it and then go for a sort of Paulie Dalberg bomb later on. So, yeah, for now, it's, there's still a couple of cards remaining for both players. Like you say, this match is very much so going to come down to who quits under the pressure here first.
And an Ithleen Thunder could open up in a Neki shuffle and a Hensel pull later on as well. So both players have to think about what their opponent might have in hand and what to play around, because obviously they played this matchup many times, I imagine, in Pro Ladder. They know kind of what could happen in every situation, but we'll see if they can really think about these very minor things that might decide this round 1 as well.
Yeah, but going into round 2, War Dancer will be such an important card in Shaggy's hand, which can just completely prevent dry passes and keep him on a positive card advantage.
That's the good thing about Dwarves. You win round 1, well, you won round 1. You don't win round 1, you have War Dancer in hand. So if your opponent doesn't have a Spy, it's almost better than winning round 1. So you have positives pretty much everywhere.
If you don't win round 1, just play War Dancer and pretend you won round 1.
Exactly. It's why Dwarves are so good in the current meta. War Dancer obviously a card that is risky. It could be bricked in round 3. There's that downside, but it also does a lot more than just 3 points. A new player might see and say, oh, who's going to play this card? It's just 3 points. Why would you do this? Just play a Swallow Potion. You get a lot more from that. And when you see Tremors coming out immediately, does it hit any targets? It does.
Yeah, it hits a Battering Ram.
A big swing.
So yeah, it's like you're saying, it's always very hard to convey the value of War Dancer to newer players because it's like, oh, but it's just the 3-point bronze, it's cool. And it's like, oh no, the impact this has on the game is enormous. Negating Dry Pass defines games. It's such a valuable card, and Shaggy is going to be very happy having that in his hand right now because, like you say, regardless of what happens, he wins round 1, perfect. He loses round 1, he keeps card advantage unless Adzakov really wants to push him. And when you push down to 1 card v 1 card, and that 1 card is Paulie Dalberg, that's a dangerous position to be in.
Big swing here. Can Adzakov catch up?
I don't think so. I think it's got to be the pass for Adzakov, right?
I
mean, he can Hensel Battering Rams out.
Pull from Hensel. How many does he have in his deck, though?
Both of them came from Winch.
There was a third that was killed.
Third,
so you might have 2 Battering Rams for doing the math correctly. Even then, it's a big thing to use up here, especially if you're scared of the War Dancer round 2.
Are there even targets? Oh yeah, there's a 1 and a 2 strength, so he would get pretty reasonable value because he can ping 3 on that Dawn Skirmisher and then hit that for 3 with the next one. So yeah, okay, or the Golem, that works too.
That's the option. He does want to stay in this round. He does have a Shawnee target as well with the Battering Ram that is in his deck already. And we also have to note, Shaggy just barely dodged the Dumb from coming out. That was an 18-point lead. So
that's incredible.
That would have been especially with an Neki, to just shuffle them back in and play him again in round 3. So it would have been, maybe game winning for Adzakov to have those come out this turn and be able to replay them in round 3 as well. But in this case, Adzakov Shaggy very happy that they didn't come out. Probably did the math there as well. And knew that
oh yeah, for sure. That's definitely something that these players will be keeping track of because it is so influential on rounds when you're playing down to this few cards. But is it worth spending Hensel to go 9 points ahead?
I mean, you're also making your opponent play Hattori.
For sure,
they're big trades. They're really big trades. And you can play Shawnee as well now, and once you play Shawnee, you're going to force your opponent. You're going to force your opponent to play Paulie, which I don't know if it's an option. Not that I think there might be a dead dwarf, but we don't know. We have to see Shaggy go into his graveyard. You obviously can't play the War Dancer for just points because it's not. I mean, it doesn't make sense in most situations.
Shaggy thinking long and hard about this one, of course. He is playing for survival. Adzakov playing to move on to the finals against Super JJ. Of course, if you go into the final, you automatically qualify for Challenger in April. So this match means a lot to both of these players.
So in the end, Shaggy cracks under the pressure first. He does end up giving Adzakov the round 1 win. War Dancer and Paulie not cards you want to use in round 1 at the very end there. Adzakov did very well in pushing Shaggy all the way to the very end there, but did Shaggy really lose? I mean, he has War Dancer. Oh, we see the Spy draw from Adzakov, which is
so
huge.
Vital.
Because Shaggy,
questionable though.
Shaggy has already played his Spy in round 1. There is no Summoning Circle in this Scoia'tael list. We saw Yavin being played from Brewer, so Adzakov very happy for that Spy draw. It puts him right back into this game.
Too. Taylor, an absolutely vital draw for Adzakov there. He's going to be very, very pleased to see that come out indeed.
Not a good Elven Scout here. Not a good Elven Scout at all. You could play the Merc and thin your deck by 1, but again, not fantastic either. I mean, a 7-point, it's not great, a 7-point bronze.
No, it's not. And then are the
Dunbanners coming out.
And Ronvid. Gonna get really worn down here. Skirmisher, a nice tempo play. Although rolling the Elven Scout from Mahakam
It might be a better for
Defender is
carryover,
also
that is
an
true.
idea. But it looks like he's just going to ping a done banner. He may want to keep that Elven Scout to deal with something round 3. But that Igni, maybe not so relevant. He's just going to drop it as a delay right now, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I think Shaggy knows he wants to keep the Elven Scout just to have a proactive play in round 3, but obviously Adzkov really pushing him here and forcing out, again, not fantastic options. You normally want to see, 12-point averages for bronzes. He's going to be looking at 7 to 9 here, so not great.
Well, it's 11 counting the Scout, right, if he plays a Vryhead Brigade.
Exactly.
So, it's okay value, but yeah, when you're playing a Vryhead Brigade for points, you know that you didn't get a particularly good pull, so... Is he going to go? Nope, he's going to go for the Brigade, I imagine. Right, so the Brigade comes down. That's going to make it a 20-point gap. Can we see a 20-point Shani? That's what Adzkov needs.
He needs a 20-point Shani, and he has last say. That is a really good thing, because when you have a deck like Shaggy's that in round 3 tends to be more reactive than proactive, with the Skirmishers, for example, with the Polyreses, trying to keep the Elven Scout was a reason. You want to have that proactive play, but in this case, Shaggy really being pushed here.
Yeah, Adzkov thinking long and hard about committing this Shani because it is such an expensive play to make. Now, Shaggy does have to go first in round 3 if he wins this round, so that means that he does not get a target necessarily for anything that he has. Adzkov going for the pass, going 1v1 Shani versus Paulie Dahlberg. The man in the cart versus the girl in the sewer. It's going to be an interesting round 3. Adzkov wins this, he moves on to the final.
And because Adzkov pushed so much, he does not have the option to play Bork in this round. It won't go off. There aren't enough turns, so you can have that as an option for a mulligan. It won't go off. The effect just won't go off. So Shaggy here, he draws again a proactive play, which is pretty good. Elven Scout. It is a bronze, but it's a decent bronze to have to make sure you can have a good poly going later on. Not great options. Again, nothing to hit with the... you're going to want to hit the Marauder.
Yeah, there's the Marauder coming out. It is not a great option indeed. That's really not what he was looking for. But he is going to have a target for a Paulie Dahlberg Res Skirmisher, so there is a lot of tempo sitting there. But ADC is an interesting draw for Adzkov right now. What will that be hitting? I believe that'll be hitting a
Siege Master.
Siege
It'll hit a
I think?
Bronze, because their Thaler, Ronbit, and Aneki have all been played. ADC obviously does not hit any golds. It won't hit Villain Treadmill.
Yeah, we saw Triple Ballista in round 1, so that's going to be a Siege Master, which is a curious ADC target, but if a machine is res, then it's potentially a decent one.
And now Battering Ram kills the Elven Scout, but then it also damages, the Marauder that does get buffed, so not as effective.
Yeah, but for that Siege Master Battering Ram, that Paulie Dahlberg is going to be a target to activate it, which is really, really nice.
And the Siege Master, maybe Bronze would have landed in the back row, would have been a better pocket. In the end, it wouldn't matter because there is no 5-point play here, but big Siege Master, big damage from Battering Ram, but is it enough by 1 point?
Shaggy cleans in by the skin of his teeth. Oh my goodness, surviving in this series, getting the win by 1 point. That would have been a draw had Ronvid went in the back row, which...
Well, there was no 5-point unit to hit, so in the end, it would be the same.
True.
I think the thing that maybe not having the standard Bork finish, when you win round 1, Adzkov maybe pushing a bit more, trying to get those important cards from Shaggy, and also, of course, not having either time or the draw, the top deck of that Bork, means that you got a very different finish with the Hensel's deck. We had ADC and Shani, which are decent cards, but not game winners like Paulie, for example.
Yeah, Shaggy looking like he felt the strain of that match. I'm sure that match was extremely wearing on both players as this series continues. 2-1 to Adzkov. Shaggy having Henselt and King Bran remaining. Adzkov having to win with his Henselt list, which seems pretty good because that wasn't an ideal draw by Adzkov there, but it still came right down to 1 point.
Yeah, but Adzkov now back on blue coin, so he missed that one chance on red coin to get it over with. But again, he still has 2 more chances, 2 more bullets in his gun, so he still has a chance here to get rid of Shaggy. 2 more games. Shaggy, of course, trying to climb back in. 2 more shots as well for him to do this.
Yeah, we're going to get right into the next game in just a moment. However, this series is intense so far.
Been tough.
1
it's
point
been tough.
separating the players there. A spot in the finals just means so much. I spoke to all these players. I said, out of interest, what do you care more about, the prize money or Challenger? And they're just like, Challenger.
Yeah,
Immediately.
Challenger.
It's like, I want to go to Challenger. I want to compete at Challenger.
It guarantees another tournament. It guarantees, glory, and the fact that your fans know that they could be rooting for you at another tournament. It's a lot in play there, not just the money, not just the trophy, but just going to another event, being able to, travel and play, Gwent with people that also compete at the same level as you, maybe even see your friends for some of these players that have formed pretty good friendships over the course of these past few months. So it's exciting to go to, and especially Challenger with the great production value we've seen in December in Motion Castle. We'll see something very surprising probably for the next in April as well. So, I mean, you want to go to Challenger for sure.
Yeah, Challenger is an unbelievable experience. Like, it's a fantastic viewing experience, but going there personally was one of the highlights of my year. Absolutely incredible. And these players, you know, they know what's at stake. Both of these guys went to Moshna Castle with us, and they know what Challenger is like. So definitely a lot at stake here. Both players just resolving some issues as we get ready to get into the next game. However, what do you think? Do you think, like, the difficult thing is Henselt is such a hard deck to judge, right? Because I think it's so draw dependent that actually a lot of the time we saw there, like, yeah, you have high value units, but Henselt didn't really find usual Henselt value. We were lacking the Naneki plays. I don't know. I feel like this one could still go either way. I think it's still everything to play for.
Yeah, they're very. Even if we see the mirror from Henselt, they're two very different decks. You have in one case with Shaggy, he has the Siege Support, for example. It's a very different deck to the Ballistas from Adzikov, and of course Adzikov also running cards like Naneki, cards like Commander's Horn that differ a lot from Scorch. I mean, Scorch is not a good card in the mirror most of the time because maybe you'd have to Scorch yourself sometimes. It might be a bricked card if Adzikov can play it correctly. So the mirror would be kind of scary for Adzikov, and considering that right now Shaggy can pick red coin and maybe force that mirror, because there is only one deck left for Adzikov, a mirror on red coin is a big thing when you play very similar cards, and we do not see a mirror. We see King Bran instead from Shaggy, so it's not what we were expecting, but still, I mean, King Bran and then a mirror for the very end could be the option that Shaggy decides to choose.
Yeah, some interesting hands coming out from both players. Adzikov finding his Siege Masters this time. Shaggy with the triple gold draw, Sirinova, Coral, and Igni. Igni really nice against Henselt, who is forced to line up his units to make use of those crewman pockets. And when you know, it's typically best against Siege Tower variants, but even against, with things like Ronvid and whatnot, it can find really nice targets.
We saw in the last game a 40-point Igni lined up. I think Adzikov will not commit that same mistake in this match. He knows that Igni is a card that is played in these brand decks with Sirinova. It's definitely a goal that you bring to this tournament, and he's not going to be doing the same thing now. Of course, with the ships, like you said, and the spies, Ignis will be lined up. There will be, Igni's a card you want to have in hand here, and Shaggy has it, so he's quite happy. You also see both Ulrich and Summoning Circle, so he has the means to set that up as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is an interesting opening play. Like, Henselt, such a reactive hand. Look at this. He's got battering rams to deal damage, winches for cards that are probably going to deal damage, and you're going first. It's not ideal. People bring Henselt to play it on the red coin, and that's why we see the open pass, because Adzikov just wants nothing to do with going first. But this allows Shaggy just the free brand play, set up his utility nicely, do a little bit of deck efficiency too, and that Olgierd is going to be jumping out next round.
Yeah, we see these drag passes against Skellige for one reason, that is the carryover. If you don't have an easy way to also create carryover yourself, you're pretty much putting yourself into a position where if you're winning a card down, you then can't drive past the next turn unless you can somehow, mess with that Olgierd with a Caretaker, for example. But
oh, look at the draw. Double done banners coming out exactly when you don't want them. That makes the mulligan impossible, and it makes his round 3 mulligan pretty dodgy too, because essentially, unless he uses that done banner now as a delaying play, and then, maybe shuffles it back in round 3, it makes draws very difficult to deal with from here on out.
And we see the Corsair mulligan there from Shaggy, making sure his Pirate Captains are not dead, and maybe even making the Pirate Captain a viable restore target as well. But Dumb Banner is a card that is great when you don't draw it into hand, when it just comes out of your deck like, surprise, I'm a Dumb Banner, I'm going to give you free points. In this case, there's still 1 in the hand, so you're only going to get 8 points instead of 12, and that could decide this round, maybe.
I really think that you should get to revoice the card with that line. Surprise, I'm a Dumb Banner, here's some points.
Maybe not as exciting, but definitely, it would convey the message a lot better.
Yeah, it'd be too confusing for new players, we can't do it. So, essentially, this is going to be probably a reasonably long round as Shaggy aims to get out a lot of that core machinery from Adzikov, because if he can get things like Henselt spent in a round that he doesn't need to win, it is draining such vital resources from Adzikov. So Shaggy probably fairly happy with the position he's in this game.
Yeah, and we see, right away, Gwent has many cards that are basically engine cards that you want to play early on to get the maximum value, because they get value over time. Time is a resource they use to acquire points, and we see it happening from both players with the Reinforced Trebuchet from Adzikov and the Light Longship from Shaggy. Both cards, they get points every single turn, 1 point added every single turn that passes.
Yeah, definitely, and that Raging Berserker is most likely going to have a ship put next to him next turn by Shaggy, as, like you say, he establishes his engine play for this long round where those ships can just find enormous value. There are answers to the ships, we have things like Villain Trettenmirth sitting around, but yeah, this is going to be trying to avoid spending critical resources for Adzkov here.
And again, 2 reinforced trebuchets now adding on to that. And we're going to see a ship very soon. Ooh, and that Olgerd hit, it could kill it next turn. So this forces a different unit to be played this turn and then having the ship the next turn because that Olgerd will die. Or you can, you know, not mess with that at all and just let the Olgerd die. But you're losing points on the Marauders coming up. 2 points to be precise on every single Marauder.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, Shaggy does have the Spy Plate in his hand too, so he's got a lot of nice utility for a long round while not spending critical effects such as Coral or Nova. And yeah, he's going to be happy with his hand here. Adzkov is just trying to establish his own engine. Not too bad.
He does, but he just let that Olgerd die. There really isn't, you know, clear options here. I mean, your hand isn't looking too good if you're Shaggy. You're looking at it, you know, closely. You don't have the tools for a long round that you can really. You have, you know, cards you want to play maybe later on, like for example the Skjall or even the Coral, and then cards you want to save for the next round, like the Nova. So not an ideal long round hand from Shaggy, I think.
I think one of the interesting things here is if Shaggy can hit a big Igni this round, he can really use that to pressure Adzkov and then get some cards out of him, and maybe, you know, even get a card back. So that would be a huge moment in this round where you're able to hit it. It looks like we're going to see another winch coming out from John Natalis, which is going to be playing a Ballista perhaps to enable Henselt, although it's not really the board for it right now.
Yeah, I mean, you have 2 12s at least, but even then you're damaging at 12, so not great. Siege Tower is an option as well. And of course, we don't see the Beastmasters in Shaggy's hand. He doesn't have that tool that can really prolong rounds and also help the Marauders get a lot more value in the long turn.
Yeah, definitely. So we see the Siege Tower coming down here just for a little bit of tempo. The Reinforced Trebuchet is enough to put him ahead. And how will Shaggy respond? Because like you say, while he has a lot of cards in hand and he can play a long round to bleed him out, not many of them are really going to do much. He'd be playing a lot of pretty valueless cards just for delaying actions, which is an option. You know, if he wants to get down to a really short round in Nova, because the Hero Pass is never going to happen, right? It would be suicide. So it is an option, but he wouldn't be playing a particularly efficient round.
And if Shaggy's feeling extra lucky here, he could just play that Raging Berserker in the front row and just have one of the Reinforced Trebuchets hit it and activate it that way. There's that chance, but interestingly enough, we're seeing, you know, both players with kind of weird hands, and Shaggy is committing to this round, which means that because they both have, you know, actually no, well, Adzkov has the Thaler from the ADC, so he does have a double spy as well with Summoning Circle, so Shaggy has to be careful. He has to make a big enough tempo gap where he can get his card back and go into round 3 on even cards. If Adzkov keeps up and, you know, plays into the spy game the same way that Shaggy will, he can respond with both Summoning Circle and the ADC. It'll mean that Shaggy will be 1 card down for round 3, and that is not a good thing at all.
No, that's not a good thing at all, especially when a Villain Trettenmirth is in the mix. So both players now wondering how to proceed. Adzkov 19 points behind, which is not a small gap to be fair, especially when Siege Master doesn't have a big damage target available on the board. You know, he's got to be careful with how he proceeds here, because if he lets himself fall too far behind, it looks like we're going to see the round 2 Villain Trettenmirth, though, which really puts a timer on this round.
Yeah, but it's also, I mean, this might be a pass for Shaggy. He has a lot of dead cards, dead Freya. I mean, these dry passes against Skellige round 1 really, you know, affect them in many ways because these res targets, or these res units, don't have targets to res from the graveyard. So we have a dead Freya, a dead Pirate Captain, because the Corsairs are obviously dead, and we also have a dead Sigdrifa, so it's tough.
Yeah, looks like Shaggy maybe doing the Aldrich just to get through his deck a little bit. Gonna take the Restore here.
I love this play. If the Reinforced Trebuchets hit the copied spies from, oh well, ADC will be at 15, so I think Adzkov can play around that and just have it scorched at 15 as well. Especially with the ships also.
Well, so the ship's going to go above that anyway, right? So as long as the ships double hit the long ship every single time, Shaggy will be fine. But that's probably not going to happen. So yeah, the ship will be the Bork victim, but. You know, you got to wonder what the gap will be. I mean, Shaggy can open up this gap even more should he choose to, but it would be spending significant resources. But the Igni is open to the double spies.
Yeah, it definitely is. But I mean, you got an Igni, you're putting it to Bork. You know, it's kind of a trade there at the end. So it's tough to say what's better. You do discard with the Ulrich, you discard a Beastmaster and open up both the Restore and the Freya. So your hand is a lot less dead right now. Shaggy finding a way to unbrick it thanks to that Ulrich discard.
The double spies from Adzkov would be protected on Shaggy's side of the board though by that ship. I mean, it's much better to have a 19 strength ship burn than 26 points worth of spies. So, you know, the Igni is, yeah, it's a trade, but it's a positive trade for you, which against the Villain Trettenmirth going off is a really, really big thing, especially when that Villain Trettenmirth was intended as a way to bully you out of the round. If you manage to, you know, resist it and keep the gap going, That's a really powerful thing against a control card like Velvet Trenton.
And not only that, but the Bork killing the ship enables a Power Captain into a Corsair into a ship res. His Freya is enabled. He can Freya, let the Beastmaster die, and then restore. So he opens up his whole hand to maybe bleed all the way down to Cyrianova and try and find a way
Adskov's hovering Commander's Horn. That would be a disaster if that were to be played. So instead, yeah, we're going to see Taylor come out. Much safer play.
Yeah, I think misplaying Commander's Horn 2 days in a row would not be a good thing for Adzikov. He'd maybe take that card out of his deck immediately after this tournament, but right now he decides to not play that card, and it's definitely a good idea here. Bork going to get a good target on that ship, but again, it also enables a lot of plays for Shaggy and also enables that Igni in the back row.
Yeah, it certainly does. Shaggy wondering probably when to pull the trigger on that Igni. Because you don't want something to come down and block it. I mean, there could be something like, say for instance, Siege Master onto a Siege Tower would actually block the Igni because it would put it to 14, and double 13's cut off. So the Igni's got to happen sooner rather than later if it's going to happen, and it would open up a pretty significant point gap even after Bork goes off. And there's double dumb banners in the hand of Adzikov.
Do we see an Igni right now? I mean,
I think so.
Shaggy knows that Commander's Horn could potentially just buff 4 units and that way disrupt the Igni a little bit. It would be taking away just a few points from Igni, not a whole lot, but still it would be an effective play, I think. Instead we see Restore right away, and Freya being saved as a res option for the next round, possibly.
Yeah, no, it's the Igni. There we go.
I think that's a safer play.
Shaggy absolutely debating us, going for the Igni on the double spies on the back row. 31-point Igni. Bork's going to go off, but, it's just... It's out traded by the Igni. A single double. Look at Shaggy's reaction. He knows immediately. He says, "Oh, he knows the double done banners are in the hand of Adzikov." That is such a huge bit of information for him, and he's smiling to himself because he knows all of a sudden my opponent is essentially -2 cards. All of a sudden, things look much more equal for Shaggy.
Not only that, but we see Shaggy with the chance to have. I mean, he can play all the cards this round and get a lot of value from them as well. I mean, there isn't really any dead cards right now. He could potentially play a Freya into Beastmaster. He could play Tegrifa into Skjold. I mean, there's so many options here from the discards from Ulrich. He doesn't have any dead cards anymore.
There's a Ronvid. There's a bunch of fantastic value plays for Shaggy here.
And he's probably going to go for 2-0, I think, if, I'm able to read into Shaggy's plays here, knowing that your opponent has 2 brick cards, like you said. Even if he has Hensel, Shawnee, some big plays here, you have just as your plays are just as good, and you have 2 more cards basically over your opponent.
Yeah, absolutely incredible bit of information for Shaggy to have possession of there, and so important. So how he proceeds here is going to be interesting. The Ballista and Hensel does still exist. That's very powerful. Ronvid is there for the crewman at the moment, unless he gets artifact compressed by Coral. But yeah, Shaggy's hand, like you say, doesn't have any dead cards, whereas those 2 done banners are not looking too great.
And there's no Igni from Adzikov either. We know he plays it in this Hensel Lisp, and it could really punish, a round 2 Cyrianova, or even a Marauder, or the ship that we see in the back row growing every single turn. But in this case, he doesn't draw it. Adzikov with terrible luck in terms of draws right now. So Shaggy, he was the unlucky one in the last game where he drew that Dead World Decree. In this case now, Adzikov being punished by the gods of RNG. And in this case, 2 done banners, not what you want to see in round 2 at all.
Yeah, this is a precarious position for Adzikov for sure, because he's got to be careful that he doesn't get burnt out of all his critical resources. So he does have Commander's Horn there. That's still a good catch-up mechanic. He's already seen the Igni come out, so he's not really got much to fear from playing that Commander's Horn. So yeah, this is going to be a very interesting one to see how this one proceeds.
And this early restore before the Freya indicates that maybe Shaggy isn't thinking about a 2-0 because there is the fact that he won't be able to have a good Freya target this turn unless something's killed that he could res later on. But that's reading into it, I think, just a bit too much. So maybe that's indicating that Shaggy is going to go to try and save Cyrianova and that Freya onto the restored Beastmaster for just as a round 3 finish instead of going for a 2-0. That's an option here. Unless if he would have gone for a 2-0, we would have seen maybe a Freya first into Beastmaster and then the restore.
Yeah, definitely. Shaggy looking at a lot of high-value plays in his hand. Oh, a done banner comes out. Adzikov trying to get Shaggy to pass, so he can just sort of, calmly take this with the Commander's Horn. But Shaggy, I think he's going to see through that. It looks like he's interested in playing out this round. Here comes Sigdrifa.
I'm surprised we don't see the Coral first, taking away value from that Ramen, for example, and creating one more target for that Marauder to get, the one more damage target.
Marauders are huge. They're a Commander's Horn on their own.
It's really tough. We should obviously Shaggy playing these units in different rows just in case they line up, and Igni could be an issue in Adzikov's hand. But I mean, look at the point gap already, and Shaggy only 2 cards down. Commander's Horn definitely an option here from Adzikov as well. There's still a lot he can do here. There's ways to catch up with Commander's Horn and Hensel, for example, into a good target. But other than that, it's going to be really tough here. We see a huge point gap. and the ship's still making a lot of progress here, and Marauders both hitting, all these damage units already. They're going to grow to 21, 22, 23 points, and that's absolutely enormous value for a bronze unit.
Yeah, definitely. We see just insane value coming out of those Marauders. There's another one sitting in the hand of Shaggy as well. No way to answer those for Adzikov is going to result in just big tempo plays coming out from Shaggy. And did we just see the other one just slamming the points down?
I'm surprised there is no Coral coming down first. It would have added points to these Marauders, and also, getting rid of that raw synergy. It's a big unit, 13. You're not going to find a 20-point Coral in this matchup, and a 13-point Ronvid, you get rid of the utility and also the, obviously the points of 13 points. So it would have been great, but in this case, Shaggy is having to save that for later on. Not sure what he's expecting here from Adzikov. That would be a better target.
Yeah, definitely. I wonder if we see the artifact compression coming out here, because that Ronvid does seem like it's kind of overdue elimination at this point, because he is allowing double siege pockets to open up with those siege masters. Now, it's going to be interesting how Adzikov proceeds here. He's 59 points behind, and the Siri Nova.
I think Shaggy does go for a round 3. Already seeing the Bork in round 2, he's less scared of that, 2 to 3 card round 3. He knows he has better plays than Hensel, no matter what. I think even with, unless he saves Hensel, of course, for round 3, but he needs it in this turn to catch up in this tempo gap that there is right now. So Ballista, it's a great play, that Siege Master. You can really line up all those 7s in the back row, but still a huge gap, and Shaggy does finally go to the pass, and he's going to save that Coral to deny the Hensel possibly in round 3 if Adzikov were to somehow save it.
Yeah, 43-point gap between these players. That is significant. Bear in mind, Commander's Horn, a high-tempo play, is only 20. There needs to be significant investment here from Adzikov to close this gap. Hensel is good. Is it that good, though?
How many blitzes are left in his deck? That is the question. Were any creative with Winch? I mean, Adzikov has to look what his best option here is with Hensel. Has to really think about this math, because it is a lot of complex math to really think about, how many units you pull and how much damage they each can do to your opponent's board. In this case, Adzikov, I mean, he's going to have a tough time. You have a lot of math to do and not a lot of time. We see the rope already starting up, and Adzikov having to, think very quickly under pressure.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to see Adzikov really have to drop Hensel here. Going to be going on those ballistas. Even if it's not enough to take it, he basically has to do it to close the gap, right? Like, even if this ends up costing him an extra card, those double dump
wasting a lot of
are just
time.
horrible. Shani's coming out, though. Okay, it's a nice ballista, but it's just not enough. That's Shani gone. We're going to see Commander's Horn, but that leaves him on the mercy of the draw for what he gets from Hensel.
And we see Coral, Shaggy reading into this possibility. I mean, it's insane. The Coral Key from Shaggy reading into maybe Adzikov trying to save Hensel as a way to try and save this game, but with Coral, I mean, it's an easy way to kind of block that target for Hensel. Yeah. And with a dead Hensel in round 3, a 3-point leader, let's say it's not
He's
ideal.
at the mercy of the draw too, because that done banner in hand, he doesn't want to keep it. So, okay, there's a ballista. He's going to be happy to see that, but the Coral is just going to wreak havoc here.
We were doubting Shaggy's play, keeping that Coral, but he read Adzikov's mind very well there. These players might have played a lot of time in Pro Ladder. They know each other well, because Shaggy, a great read, keeping Coral, and he will be able to, deny some value from Hensel. I'm not sure if all the value, if there is anything to pull with one of these targets, maybe from Battering Ram, but still, I mean, he has Siri Nova, he has, Beastmaster, decent bronze.
This one's just over. I
over.
Let's look at the things on the board. We've got Beastmaster, Priestess of Freya, the Restore target. We've got Suri Nova. I mean, Shaggy, just those double dump banner draws in round 2 were just crippling for Adzikov here.
Shaggy, I mean, playing Suri Nova right away, deciding to not. I mean, he knows it has to be damaged, just to give his Marauders a bit more points as well, but he does have one battering ram there, and Shaggy just needs well, he doesn't need any points, he's already ahead.
Oh man, I've got to laugh, because I was talking to Adzikov before this, and I said, how you feeling about the matchup? And he said, yeah, I'm feeling confident. I think my decks are good. And he genuinely said verbatim, he said, but it's a card game. Card game things can happen. And card game things definitely just happened with double done banners coming out in round 2 and crippling Adzikov's tempo.
Yeah, I mean, first it was Shaggy with the Dead Royal Decree, a card that is great. It can find you what you need when you need it, but it can also be not only a dead gold, but it's one less gold you have in your deck. So it really punished Shaggy in one of his games, but in this case now Adzikov also feeling that wrath from the RNG gods. In the end, you can't do much about it. There is that, the that element from, like you said, from card games, you can get guaranteed. Obviously, Gwent is very consistent in its draws. It has a smaller deck and a lot of tutoring, a lot of effects that can pretty much guarantee your deck plays out very similarly in every single matchup. But in this case, both players getting hit with curveballs.
Yeah, that was absolutely horrendous for Adzikov. He's got to keep his mental fortitude, something that I think he's definitely grown in so much as a player over like the tournaments. I think he's fantastic at it now. We saw that from him going from, the Henselt Commander's Horn misplay to going like Super Saiyan mode Henselt afterwards. So this is now a Henselt mirror match to decide the finalist. Shaggy alive for the reverse sweep. Adzikov losing 2 games in a row from 2-0 up. This is the final game of this series to decide who goes on to face Super JJ in the finals, and also who goes to Challenger.
Adzikov on red coin. That is the big thing to keep in mind here. He has that edge right out, right as soon as we start this match already. Adzikov with a bit of a bonus in terms of, the percentages on who's going to win this match. But obviously both players very equally matched. We're going down to the very last game in this semifinal, and it's quite close. I mean, both players, a little bit of bad luck, a lot of good plays, but in the end, it comes down to this very last game, and it's really hard to call who's going to win this.
Yeah, definitely. But what do you think of this triple siege support in the hand of Shaggy?
Normally I think of more of an explosive start with siege supports, but when you're going second, it maybe isn't as bad because you can kind of say, I'm going to play these cards, they're going to give me, a lot of points, and Shaggy says, nope, I don't care about the finishers here. You can have your Bork go off first. I really don't mind in a mirror match. I'm going to get back on my card and just pass on to the next round.
Yeah, Adzikov very happy to have Ronvid in hand for that scenario, allows him to establish the carryover. However, only coming out after a card is played. Both players thinking extensively about how they proceed. The Dunbanner draws up. No!
Oh my
There's
goodness,
double Dunbanner draws for Adzikov again! Oh my goodness, this really shows the risk-reward factor of deck building. This is why you have to accept the risks that come when you run these cards.
People complain about cards like the Dunbanner, like the Ward Edge that have great effects if they don't break your hand, but in this case we see why it's so dangerous to run these cards. They could be great, they have great synergy with Thaler, with Summoning Circle, and with Henselt in general, and with the Neki as well, of course, but in this case, really punishing Adzikov, and he can't do much about it.
Yeah, and again, if Shaggy sees 2 Dunbanners come out, again, that's a big bit of information. He's going to smile to himself and get a feeling of deja vu because he's going to know that there's at least 1 dead card in his opponent's hand. That is a horrible draw for Adzikov that didn't allow him to put anything back that he may have preferred, like Siege Masters or whatnot, for Henselt. So this is really a horrible draw for Adzikov, but he does have the first round.
Exactly, and he has control over this round, and he also has the spy game advantage with the Summoning Circle in hand. We see Shaggy is missing that card in his hand, and of course he already plays Thaler, so ADC won't bring another spy. That's not how it works. In this case, Adzikov has a way to get out of here, and also be able to mulligan that Dunbanner next turn, so maybe it won't punish him in the end. He has that extra mulligan chance if he doesn't get another Dunbanner next turn in round 3.
Yeah, and it's a forced mulligan, right? Because no matter what he draws, there we go, Shaggy knows immediately. He's like, well, you got Dunbanner in your hand.
And Shaggy, he kind of says, he doesn't smile too much because he knows it doesn't matter too much. Once he doesn't have the spy to respond, now Adzikov has the green light to say, hey, I'm going to bleed you out of all your siege supports, of all your long turn tempo plays, and we're going to go into the last round with very similar plays, but I'm going to have last say at least.
Adzikov's Natalis is dead, right? He played a winch. He's got 2 winches in hand in Commander's Horn.
It is dead,
He's got
but
a
again,
Dunbanner, so he's got to mulligan one of them. Means he's got a dead Natalis.
In the end, you're getting rid of a gold, but because you have control of this round, it doesn't matter. You can play a 6-point Natalis and not get too punished, and that's probably what he's going to have to do.
Yeah, so that means that's the danger of the deck building with Dunbanners, right? Because of that, he cannot keep Natalis into round 3. It's dead. He's got to mulligan the Dunbanner, and that just shows the risk-reward nature of deck building.
And Adzikov has the Igni, has the double 13 spy lined up, even with the ADC. He has, the reinforced ballistas from Winch to be able to play around that. So get a good draw from Winch at least. And, he can really put Shaggy in a tough spot. He has to start playing for tempo and not just setup with those siege supports because he's going to go down a lot of points very soon once that Igni is unleashed.
Yeah, and he knows that the Igni's coming. You can see it. As soon as they play the double 13s, you're like, okay, I can have a guess what's in your hand, other than a Dunbanner. But yeah, I'd expect that we may just see continued setup here from Shaggy because if he gets more and more siege supports down, those siege towers become really high value tempo plays.
He can't go too slow though. Once that big Igni gets dropped, you're gonna have to find yourself playing a game of catch up. And if you're already very behind, it's gonna be even harder to catch up. So Shaggy, maybe gonna think about trying to play around that Igni a bit. He knows it's coming, most probably, unless it's a mind game from Adzikov. He decides not to, so he's going to play it slow. We'll get another siege support, setting up for a long round 2.
Yeah, if those get burnt, he does go significantly far down. That's 31 points. It's a serious thing, especially when Shaggy doesn't have a Henselt target on the board. He may be looking to simply try to get a longer round out of Adzkov. Adzkov's hovering over his John Natalis. I don't believe it has anything to play, as we said, so yeah, this is a precarious situation for both players, actually. We sort of have Adzkov with a suboptimal hand and Shaggy with a suboptimal game position.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, Shaggy has in his hand 2 Siege Towers and 2 Battering Rams, so he can only pull 1 unit out of his deck with Henselt, so not an ideal Henselt either.
Yeah, Henselt's really actually... There we go, there's the Igni. Shaggy immediately knows. 21 points down, needs 22 points for the pass. However,
but he has done banners.
Aye, sir, those synergize wonderfully with the done banners. 6 points apiece, 18 free points, puts him right back in this round. There comes Ronvid. 2 double crewman pockets. That gives those siege towers enormous tempo as they will boost and gain armor as well. Not that the armor is particularly relevant in this matchup, but it does prevent things like ballistas, finding an easy target on them. But yeah, that is now a really great potential setup for Shaggy.
And again, Adzkov, he's wasting a gold card in Igni, but it's a card that you don't really want for a short round 3 because it doesn't get you guaranteed value every time. You need the 25 points on a single row, which isn't easy to do, especially not against Henselt. It isn't really that big of a, of a point generator in general. It's more of a control deck. So Igni a good trade here, and he knows that these banners coming out this turn. It means they're not coming out in round 3, so he's not too worried, I think.
Yeah, I'll be interested what Adzkov chooses to go for here. Looks like he's just going to drop the Siege Master down, reactivate that Reinforced Ballista, remove one of those Siege Supports, which not only removes value from everything played, it also makes it... There's only 1 double crewman pocket. However, there is another one in the hand of Shaggy that he could just choose to drop, but he may want it depending on how long round 3 will go. At
this point, I think he knows Adzkov is going to bleed him down to very few cards, so the sooner he plays Siege Support in this round, the better, because it means that he can obviously get the maximum value from it in this round, and make sure Adzkov can't somehow overpower him with just better plays in general. So, going to go for the Siege Support maybe soon enough, I think, if he has the option to, just to make sure, maybe he wants to get some tempo on the board just to make sure he can create a bit of a gap here, so Adzkov can't get any cheeky ideas to try and create a gap himself and try and get a card advantage going into round 3.
Now, one of the interesting cards that we haven't spoken about yet is Margarita in the hand of Shaggy. Obviously, a kind of a tech for the consume matchup, but in this match, it's going to struggle to find value, seeing as ballistas run over siege towers. There's not even a big reset for it. Do we just see that dropped onto the Ronvid, or...?
I mean, possibly. It's a way of dealing with carryover in a way, and you're not going to get much more value from it. So I think as soon as Shaggy gets the chance to, he's going to start dropping his lower value cards and try and keep his better cards for round 3. And Margarita, like you said, definitely isn't one of them, unless you want to lock a Bork for some reason. It's the only really unit you want to lock in this matchup.
Yeah, for sure. So it's an interesting position for Shaggy to be in. Adzkov just keeping up the tempo, keeping close so he can open up a gap should he choose to with that Commander's Horn, but Shaggy has a lot of high-power cards. There comes the other Siege Support. Interesting to see the Siege Tower before that. Perhaps he was trying to tease out a pass from Adzkov.
In double 15 there, we do know that there is no decoy on Igni possibility. That would be devastating for Shaggy, but that does not exist in the game. So Shaggy, he can play into that 15 and say, Adzkov, don't you wish that was a possibility, but it clearly isn't. Of course, no renew Igni with Igni still on board either, so Shaggy plays into that and doesn't care too much.
Yeah, thankfully cards that don't exist aren't too much of a threat in the game right now. One day I'm sure it will, but we'll deal with that when it comes to it. However, another Siege Support falls. They are proving to be really high priority targets this tournament. And
of course we know Shaggy does run Scorch, but Adzkov does not. Instead he does run that Commander's Horn variant that we talked about earlier, so no chance in doing that in, a cheeky 30-point Scorch either. So for now he'll just be able to play that out. Doesn't care too much about stacking one row. We do obviously want the crewman synergy with those cards, so he's going to stack that back row over the the range or the melee row.
Yeah, looks like John Natalis may be coming out potentially just as a delay. We'll see. I would have thought well, I guess you can mulligan the done banner and it may come out if you go 20 points behind in round 3. It's free 4 points. It's not great, but it's something. Oh, John Natalis actually does have a winch. My apologies. I
does have a winch, though. Winches for everyone. Another winch for John Natalis as well. He does have an option to play here, even if it wasn't an issue, I think, for Adzkov, although he does thin out that winch, which might not be the ideal card to draw in round 3, for example.
Yeah, definitely. It looks like we're seeing a Reinforced Ballista come down, sitting next to that Siege Master. Going to get fire once, put that Siege Support onto 1 HP. However, it's not too big of a gap. Shaggy can still easily jump back ahead.
Do you play the Dun Banner? That's the question here. I mean, if you don't draw a Dun Banner in your round 3 mulligan, you can blacklist that one, and it's a way, to not have, to draw those dead cards. But if you play it now, you have the chance to have a mulligan no matter what, and that could give you an advantage if you draw a card you don't want for round 3. So it's tough to say here for Adzkov if you could take the risk of maybe keeping it or deciding to play it out just from hand in this round 2.
Yeah, definitely. Looks like we may see the Ballista come down here. There's a few nice lined up targets. as Adzakov seeks to move back ahead to force value plays out from Shaggy.
And he kills the Siege Support, which is a good way of dealing with that. A bit late, you know, most of the value has been already transferred onto these units, but still, you know, a good thing to do earlier rather than later. Marguerite, like we said, coming out, blocking Ronve, like you said, so that means that Shaggy is not scared of the possible tempo that Shaggy can do here. He's not going to get punished, and there really isn't a better unit anyway, so it just doesn't matter in terms of tempo.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Adzakov proceeds here. The other winch coming out.
And of course, the later that Adzakov plays that Dun Banner, if he's going to play it from hand, it means that Shaggy will still have to commit to a decent amount of points every play just in case. So he doesn't have the option to just play low tempo and play his worst card altogether, and that might bleed out, you know, a gold or a valuable card from Shaggy in this round too. So if he wants to play from hand, probably the later the better, as long as you don't, you know, give Shaggy a hero pass, for example.
Yeah, precisely. I think hero passing is probably when you're playing in the final game for a spot at Challenger, hero passing would require quite the balls, but I don't think we'll see it here. However, Adzakov just staying on the value plays. Shaggy has to choose now, really. You know, he's getting to spending important cards.
Like we said, Natalis, a card you could spend round 3, and it's still a very viable, you know, a great gold with Winch, of course, pretty good tempo, but he's spending it in this turn, so it's already one card that he's bled out from Shaggy here. Adzakov with its game plan of bleeding out in round 2, and that's a really good ballista.
That's a beautiful ballista
as well. Horn, another card that could be, you know, a bit weirder in round 3 with the Borks coming out, double Borks. You might end up not wanting to boost anything, maybe boosting your opponent's units as well. We saw that before in other tournaments. But in this case, I think Adzakov wants to get rid of it now. Not great in this matchup, and just have maybe his Shawnee into a Hensel in round 3.
Yeah, definitely. I think that Adzakov's thinking about the Horn. He's considering it. It would put him ahead. It would require points from Shaggy, but it would only be 2 points ahead. He could play almost anything. He's just going to play the Dun Banner as a delaying action instead, potentially.
And Adzakov has to be careful. If he lets Shaggy get too far ahead, it would pull Dun Banners from his deck. Does he want this? I mean, he could potentially keep them and force Shaggy to pull them out for him in round 3, and it makes your mulligans clearer if they come out now, but maybe it's something you're missing out on for round 3 as well.
Goes to the Commander's Horn instead, dropping it on the range row for 20 points of value. Puts him 2 points ahead. Shaggy able to play almost anything to go back ahead.
And talking about brick cards, if Shaggy goes for a mulligan in round 3 and ends up drawing Bork, that Royal Decree would be bricked yet again. So a lot of things to keep in mind here for both players. With the mulligans in the next round, that definitely could potentially, you know, decide the game even.
Yeah, it certainly could. We have seen draws be nefarious so far in this series. Dun Banners not really, well, being both fantastic and absolutely abysmal for some players. So it will come down to a little bit of luck of the draw, but both players running fairly similar decks. Last play advantage could be a factor here too.
And when you're keeping Hensel, I mean, there's a lot of thought put into the mulligan, because you want to get obviously the maximum effectiveness from Hensel, and if you draw one of the targets you want to pull with Hensel, you're basically just losing points. It's one card less, even though you're a bit more reactive. But maybe players go for risky mulligans because of this. Obviously, game 5, they have to kind of risk it to get the high reward that is getting that finals pass and going to Challenger. But Adzakov pushing here, deciding not to go into any kind of risk and playing Hensel out in this turn, creating a big tempo gap here, maybe forcing Shaggy to also play cards like Hensel or Shawnee.
Yeah, I think that's what he's hoping to see in response. He's hoping to see equivalent power plays come out from Shaggy to respond to this. But it's a very high pressure play. Both players obviously wanting to keep their Shawnee in round 3. Shawnee kind of like the classic round 3 Northern Realms card, especially in this kind of play. But it's an interesting choice for Shaggy, really. I don't know what he's got as a Hensel target.
And we spoke about this. He only has one pull from Hensel. He does not have the double pull because he had 2 Siege Towers and 2 Rams in deck, I believe. So, or in his hand instead of in his deck. So it makes so that the Hensel isn't as effective. You normally see Hensel that could potentially pull 3 to 4 units, maybe, you know, most of the time just 2 units. But in this case, Shaggy, I think, might not have the ideal Hensel. We'll see in just a second.
Yeah, with the Siege Sports killed, I don't think he can do it with a Hensel from the Siege Tower.
And we see a Battering Ram in the graveyard, and then 2 Siege Towers and a Battering Ram on the battlefield.
I think it's got to be Shawnee, which is not what he wants to be playing.
And of course, Nonaneki to kind of, you know, have a cheeky shuffle there and get a few of those Battering Rams or Siege Supports back into his deck.
So he takes about 1 point, which is really, really clutch at this moment, but his Shawnee is gone. Adzakov replying with a Shawnee of his own. Is Adzakov trying to 2-0 here?
I mean, you're going to have a Bork that's going to be from Royal Decree. It's not going to go off, first of all, so it's going to be just a 12-point play. Hensel is kind of dead, but then you have a Dun Banner that's not ideal either, so Would you, if you're planning on playing a done banner, would you not play it first and maybe try and get your own done banners out and then go for the finishing Shawnee play to try and get? Because right now we're not going to see Shaggy with a 40-point play, but he might just get 2-0'd. I mean, he won't, right? Because there's a battering ram just going to be enough points from the Hensel, and then just a 4-point done banner won't do it for Adzikov, I think.
I mean, this is an intense second round. Both players, like I said, have so much to play for here, and it's showing like they're not giving it in. Shaggy 1 point short with the battering ram. Adzikov surely is the pass now, yeah.
He gets the extra card. I mean, he gets the risky play where he can maybe, draw into a done banner, but 4 points is better than nothing from hand. So Adzikov, very, very stellar
Shaggy
play here in
simply
round
has
2.
so little left.
I think those draws again, punishing Shaggy with only the single target from Hensel instead of having 2 battering rams, only having 1. Really, we saw it there. The tempo just wasn't enough.
Neneke and Ballista. Nah, this is over, I'm afraid.
Nothing dead here from Adzikov. That's the thing he has to keep in mind.
He's got to go first too.
And
this is game over for Shaggy. Yes. He already knows. Dropping a 10-point siege tower. Adzikov.
He has to play his cards. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. He does have to play his cards to get those points on the board.
He does have to literally play the card. However, this is going to be Adzikov taking the 5th game of the series and winning the series 3-2. Adzikov proceeds to the final to face Super JJ and claim his place at Challenger in a stunning series from both players.
And we see great sportsmanship from both players. Obviously, they've played each other a lot. They've seen each other a lot over the past few months. 2 players that have been very consistent in their tournament play, obviously showing up to pretty much every single tournament for the most part between both players, including the official CD Projekt Red tournaments and also the Gwent Slam events. In this case, both players talking about the match. Very close match. A lot of crazy play, some bad luck. I mean, we've had it all, basically.
Yeah, that was an absolutely intense series. Unbelievable. That round 2 in that final game, the done banners in game 4, just really unbelievable stuff going on in that series. But congratulations to Adzikov. We're going to have an interview with him right now. So over to the birthday boy, Mr. Boja.
Thanks, Merchant. I'm here with Adzikov. Not only have you broken the curse, but also you're in the finals and you're going to Challenger for sure. So how do you feel, man?
That's amazing, right? Like, it's funny because yesterday I played much better than today, but still, I didn't lose my mind in the game, and even if I played bad, I tried to play best. So yeah, that was I won, so it's nothing to complain, right?
It's very interesting because you had the done banner light cavalry in your hand. I was like, okay, no, this might not go well, but then you came back from it super easily.
Yeah, I think I can say only that Igni won me the last game. It's all just abuse spy with Igni is so strong. So, and Shaggy didn't draw his circle, so it was some lucky draws for me, I believe.
How do you feel going against Super JJ in the final?
I feel great because I think my lineup is better than his. He's targeting consume, and I have no consume, so yeah, we'll see. It's still card game, so even if my lineup is better, it's never can say you're gonna win, but I'm gonna win.
I like that confidence.